Well, as Fee said, we're carrying on a series in Jacob, in the first book of the Bible, in Genesis. And I can't really talk to you about India, but I can talk to you about Derbyshire, where I went a couple of weeks ago, which is not quite the same, is it? Doesn't have quite the same ring to it. But where is it? Ian Taylor, he's around, isn't he? There you go. You'll know about this. There's a road between Bakewell, where the real Bakewell tarts come from, and Baslow, which is somewhere you've never heard of, near Chatsworth, near the country estate, Chatsworth in Derbyshire. And this road has got, it's called 13 Bends, because it has 13 bends in it. That's what it has, 13 bends in 3/4 of a mile. Have you been down that road? You've been down that road, yeah, quite a few times, I'm sure. And this morning we're really going to be looking at a bend in the road for Jacob. Bends in the road. Our lives, I think, if I talked to you about your life, there'd be loads of stuff that you wouldn't tell me. Most of it you wouldn't tell me. Maybe that'd be because you didn't know me well enough, or maybe it's just actually because it's boring. But most of our lives are boring, but there are significant moments in our lives where significant things happen, like life-changing moments, big decision-making moments, wonderful moments where you get a job, or you meet someone, or you move house, or you wrestle through something, or really difficult moments where you might lose your job, or you might lose someone you love, or whatever. And when we're talking, those things would come up if you were sort of giving me a summary of your life. And those are like bends in the road that make up our life, the highs, the lows. And I guess that's what we're getting when we're looking at the life of Jacob. We are getting the bends in the road. We're getting the significant bits. We're getting not the bits in terms of what he had for breakfast, but this bit where this happened and his life was never the same again. And so we come to another bend in the road this morning for Jacob. A choice that he makes which has massively painful consequences, which are long-lasting and which will shape him and his family for a long time. And I think there's going to be hopefully lots in here that we can learn about decision-making and how to make decisions well, and choices and how to think about those, avoiding making bad decisions. And also just thinking about how difficult situations and difficult environments shape us and reshape us, and where God is in those things. Sometimes it feels like he's not there. It's interesting in this passage, God is not mentioned once in this passage, and yet he's there. So it raises questions. Where is God in some of those things? So a bend in the road, and we're in Genesis chapter 29, and we'll read to verse 30. But we're going to zero in on the choice that he makes, and then the consequences of that choice, the fallout of his actions. Poor Jacob, every week we read something he does wrong. Every so often there's a happy week as well, so it's okay. Just hang on in there. All right, so let's look at this choice together, and we'll read verses 1 to 14 together. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We're from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." He said to them, "Is it well with him?" They said, "It's well. And see, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it's still high day. It's not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go, pasture them." But they said, "We can't until the flocks are gathered together and the stones rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, "Surely you're my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Okay, lots is happening in these verses, and some of you will have been here every week listening to every message and can remember everything. And some of you are like, what are we even talking about? So let's just remind ourselves of what's going on here. Jacob is far from home. He has tricked his brother, and he's basically cheated him out of all of the rights of the firstborn and all of the privileges of the family and all the leadership on the offer there and all the inheritance. And he also did that by tricking his dad in the night. And the fallout of that is that his brother Esau wants to kill him, and his parents then send him away. And he's essentially running for his life. And his dad blesses him, and he tells him to go and find a wife. And so it is that in these verses we find that Jacob is wandering, and he's in the land of the east. He probably doesn't even know where he is, hence you get that sort of phrase, the land of the east, the people of the land of the east. And then it just feels like things happen from here. It feels like everything just falls into his lap really nicely. He just happens. He's looking for a wife, and the first person he meets, she just happens to be stunningly good looking. He happens to find a well, and then he happens across these shepherds, and they just happen to know his uncle, who's the person that he happens to be looking for. And as they're talking together, like, the whole story slows down, and like Rachel comes into the scene, and she's just beautiful. And he sees her straight away, and he doesn't know anything about her. But he's hit the jackpot in his mind, and he is like drawn like a moth to a flame. And there's no need, this is Jacob, there's no need to think about this. There's no need to slow down here. There's no need to question whether this is the right thing. There's no need to wonder whether this has been all a bit too easy. There's no need to pray. There's no need to talk this through with anyone. There's no need even to speak to her, because he's seen her and she's the one. No questions to work through in his head. No need to get to know her or what she's even like. He's single-minded at this point. All he does, I don't know if you spotted, so they make this point about the well having this massive stone on, that the shepherds together would move. He sees how good-looking she is, and all he does is he basically gets his guns out and moves this stone by himself. That's all he does. And the only other thing he does is he tries to get them out of the way. He's like, "Do not water your, get out." I don't want you talking to her. I don't want to talk to you. I just want to talk to her. I just want some one-to-one time with her. That's all he does, because he's so keen to show her how absolutely ripped he is, basically. And this is a huge moment of emotion for him as well. As well as all of that, there's huge relief for him. He's come across his family. He's not on his own anymore. It's massive joy and excitement, and he kisses her, as is the custom of the day, and he kisses Laban later. And she goes and gets her uncle, and Jacob goes back to the family, and they say he can stay for a month rent-free, and it's just all fantastic. Except it's really not. It's really not. Because something is now in motion that is going to have massive consequences for Jacob and his family. And it isn't, just to be really clear, it isn't that Rachel's the wrong choice. That's not what the narrative is saying or what I'm saying. It's just that how Jacob goes about that choice and his decision-making is wrong, basically. He misreads what's going on. He doesn't even read. He doesn't even think about it. And because of that, he ends up in all sorts of trouble. Because things are not as they seem. This isn't the first time we've come across Laban. He's in Genesis 24, and he's not really a nice guy. He's a trickster. Jacob has met his match in Laban. And it isn't the first time that that someone in Jacob's family has met their future wife at a well. This isn't the first time. In fact, Jacob's dad, Isaac, and Rebekah, like how that happened was at a well, basically. Abraham sent his servant to a well, and you can read about this in Genesis 24. And he meets Rebekah at the well, and that's how that happened. So Jacob would have grown up on a story about how his dad, essentially, his mum, met his mum at this well. Now, so far so similar in some ways, but the way that happens is totally different. The outcome might be the same, but the process is different because God is in the whole of the process in terms of Isaac and Rebekah. Abraham is full of faith and he's prayerful and he sends his servant and he says, would God bless you? And then the servant is praying as he goes that someone who's godly and has got wonderful character and is the right fit for Isaac would be there at the well. And then he gets to the well and he's like, Lord, is this the right person or not? And he's prayerful in it and he's thinking about it and he's weighing it up. And then when she comes to the well, he even makes sure that he tests her character to see what her character is like, to see if she's godly, to see if they're going to be compatible, to see if this is going to work at all. And so there's prayer mixed in, there's God everywhere, there's wisdom, there's time, all of which there is nothing of in Jacob's process. And Laban, in that process, you see what kind of man he is, because when he sees the servant, he thinks, I can get some money out of this guy and I can extort him. If it is that Rebekah's going to go, then let's get some money out of him at least. But the servant is switched on, and so he doesn't fall for what Laban is trying to do. Very, very different in terms of what happens with Jacob. God is not in Jacob's process. There's no prayer, there's no wisdom, there's no guidance, there's no time taken to check whether Rachel's got a good character. I mean, she's stunningly good looking. Like, what more does he need? It's clearly the right thing to do. Why do I need to think about it? Even though he knows absolutely nothing about her. It's important to pause and reflect a little bit here, because I think there's lots in here. This is an example. The New Testament says that the Old Testament was written down as an example for us. These people are examples for us to learn from. So there's lots here. Yes, there's things about relationships here, but there's actually things about decision making here, and about wisdom here, and about prayerfulness here, and about choices here, and about discernment, and words like that which take more time and are a bit more boring than just falling for the first person that you meet or the first job that you see. It seems that it's great when the first thing is the right thing, or the first person is the right one, or the first job that comes up is brilliant. But it feels to me, from my life and just from experience and from this story, that often isn't the case. Life isn't actually that straightforward. This is a bit depressing, you know. I feel like I'm like an old man saying, like, really? My life's been straightforward. Often it isn't. And it seems to me that God often works at a slower pace than we do, or that we like. Apparently his ways aren't our ways. They're higher. His timeline isn't our timeline. It's different. It's better. He doesn't just see what we see. He sees lots more. He sees so many things that we don't see. So it's often not the first thing that comes up. The first job advert, the first man or woman that you meet, the first person I met at university, the first woman I met at university. I tried that one. It didn't go well. Don't just go on looks. Don't just go on the best opportunity or the highest paid job or the first person that you meet. Take time to test, what are they actually like? What would that be like if I went down that route with that job? What would that actually be like? Will it be good for you? Will they be good for you? Will it be good for your faith? Do they love the Lord? How would your faith work out in that job? Where's God in the decision-making process? Where's God in your decision-making process? That job, how would that work alongside everything else? It's not necessarily the easy option either. There might be something that you haven't seen yet. Like Jacob takes zero time, and it seems like sometimes things just emerge over time that God might want to show you if you give him the time. That might take a bit longer and be a bit more painful, but might be a better thing. Let's not fixate on like the one or the right thing, but let's think about wisdom and better things and worse things. But let's give time to him. Let's give time to the process. Let's seek outside voices. Let's get wisdom, which doesn't come in an instant. It feels like sometimes the Lord will take you down a route that will take longer to get somewhere. I think back when I was 19 when I felt a very distinct calling to be a preacher and to work for a church. I was 34 when I started working for a church. And in that process, there were lots of moments when I thought that would never happen. There were times when I stopped thinking about that. There were times when that was in no way inevitable from a human perspective. But you look back, and many of us will be able to look back on things in our life, and we will see God's hand like all over it, and we'll say, He was in it. I didn't see it at the time, but He was in it. So don't just jump in. Take time to think. Speak to wise people. Seek the Lord for clarity. And if in doubt, my driving instructor said, wait. Wait. Just if you're not sure, wait. Saves a few car crashes, that one. Just wait. Wait until it becomes clear and trust that He is in the waiting. Are we okay? Are we just all musing and discerning prayerfully? Very good. Okay. So that's the choice. I don't think it's the wrong choice. It might not be the best choice. And if he'd have gone about it better, he would have saved himself a lot of heartache, because there's a lot of consequences that are about to come poor Jacob's way. So let's look at those consequences together in verses 15 to 30. And we'll take this a little bit more blow by blow, because, as I said, Jacob has met his match in Laban, and things are about to unravel. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you're my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" So here what happens is that we start to mix family with money and family with pay, and suddenly a family relationship becomes an employer-employee one. Mixing family with money can be a bad idea. Another bit of wisdom. Because Laban is about to squeeze Jacob for all he can get out of him. And he's going to be able to get a lot out of Jacob, because Jacob just says the first thing that comes into his mouth. Verse 16. Now Laban had 2 daughters. Laban thought, well, this doesn't just need to be money. I can use my daughters as pawns in this game. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and in appearance. Suddenly, Laban has seen something. Jacob has set his heart on Rachel, but this is not going to be easy for him. It's not exactly clear what it means that Leah has weak eyes. I don't think it means that she needed to go to Specsavers. This is not a contrast between someone who's blind and someone who's really good looking. That is not what is going on here. It is a word picture. We're talking about 4,000-year-old idioms here. So it's like if I was pulling your leg, I'm not touching your leg or pulling it off. There's something going on there. But the contrast, this actually could be, some of the commentators say this is a compliment. So it could be that literally in the Hebrew she's got tender eyes. It could be that she has nice eyes. It could be that she's not amazingly good looking. But the main point is that she's not as good looking as Rachel. That's the main point. Rachel is all round good looking. Everything about her is stunning. And so it's a point of contrast. And if you love someone, you don't necessarily have to marry their sister as well. It's just basic. You don't have to do that. That's not the way it works. And he's not interested in Leah. He never was. He doesn't love her. He doesn't have any feelings for her. She's Rachel's sister. It's not like a 2-for-1 thing. He's desperate to marry Rachel. And so, let's keep going. Jacob loved Rachel, and because of that, he went for the big one. He said, I'll serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. And Laban thought, what a gift. I don't need to barter here. I don't need to do anything. He's just said this ridiculously high number. He's going to work for me for 7 years for my daughter. I'm going to get 7 years of work out of him for free. I've got him. And so there is no bartering, there's no nothing. Laban says, it's better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. I'm a nice guy. Stay with me. But this plan is forming in Laban's head because he has got Jacob now. It's like bartering with your kids, you know. It would be like, can I have 2 chocolate buttons? And it's like, and they're like, can I have 4? And you're like, no, I think 3. Let's go 3. And then I remember Henry, my eldest, he'd be like, no, 2. And I'd be like, I've got you. I'll go for the 2. And it's like that. He says 7, and Laban bites his hand off. Suddenly, this rent-free month has turned into 7 years. And by the end of this story of Jacob's life, Jacob is going to have been there 20 years. 20 years. A rent-free month. A moment at a well. And 20 years later, Jacob is going to still be trapped. So Laban is a cool customer. So let's read on and see what happens. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. And Laban thought, I'm going to give you a wife. Yeah, I'm going to give you a wife. You're going to get a wife out of this. It might not be the one you want, but you're going to get a wife out of it. And so we go on. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast, and the great day comes, the wedding day comes. And it's dark, and in the evening, the bride has got a veil on for the whole day, and in the evening, they make sure that Jacob gets absolutely tanked up and is drunk, and this is what happens. In the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, it's light, and Jacob rolls over, and the woman next to him isn't Rachel. There's a different woman there. And Jacob is suddenly on the receiving end of what he has been giving all his life, basically. He is tasting his own medicine, and it's bitter. He tricked his family in the dark. That's how Jacob did it. And now he has been tricked in the dark. What goes around comes around. And he is getting this full bore. The messer has become the messy, if you like, friends. He is on the receiving end, and he is reaping what he has sown. He has lived his life in a whole way of cheating and tricking, and suddenly that is what has happened to him, and he really, really doesn't like it. Let's read on. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Laban said, It's not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. You might have tricked your way as the younger. But that's not how we do things here. That's not how we do things here. I can imagine it's a bit like, have some of that. Have some of that. Complete the week of this one, the wedding week, and we'll give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. So he will get Rachel at the end of the week, and then he'll do another 7 years. He won't have to work another 7 years to then get her, but suddenly we're at 14 years. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. He never loved Leah. And we see the mention of the two servants there, because these two wives now, just if ever you are like, why doesn't the Bible ever say about multiple wives? Well, firstly, it does in the law. And secondly, you can see pretty clearly here it's a bad idea. You're supposed to read stories like this and think this is a bad idea. It speaks for itself. We've now got two wives, and later those two servants are going to give, those two wives are going to give their two servants to Jacob as well, and he is going to have 12 sons from 4 women. And this is going to be a total mess. You can read on and enjoy that in chapter 30, but we'll stop reading there. What are we to make of this mess? Just try and pull together a few applications and a few thoughts in terms of how this lands with us and should land with us. I think the first is about Jacob, and the second is about Leah. As I said, Jacob, he makes a choice, and he goes from being rent-free for a month to 20 years, essentially, trapped and enslaved, really, with his uncle. And we don't get to see inside his brain at this point, or hear what he's thinking, or be able to interview him, or there isn't a comment from the narrator about what God's doing here. But I think if you zoom out into the story, and as you move forward into the chapters that come, you can see that there's all sorts of things going on here. And it must have been an extremely humbling time for Jacob. And this was a guy who needed humbling. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. But he often creates the conditions that are needed, and he often humbles people so that they become humble. That's just a brutal reality that we don't like. You can let's work on humility. I'd like to be more humble. Often the way God does that is by bringing very difficult circumstances or allowing things to happen. And in that pressure cooker, he is at work. And this is a humbling time for Jacob. It reminds me a little bit of, not this job, my previous job in financial services. And that was quite dysfunctional in lots of ways. There was lots of dysfunction, lots of politics, lots of staff turnover, lots of people actually even fired on the spot. It just sort of becomes normal. Dysfunction becomes normal. And there were good people there, and there were good things there, and there were some great clients there, and in some ways I had a great time there. And in other ways, though, at the beginning, I really, really wanted out, really wanted out. I felt a bit trapped because I'd wanted to lecture at a university and become a historian, and that hadn't happened. I'd applied for jobs, and none of them came off. I think I've said before, not 1, but 3 jobs came up at Exeter University, and one of them, someone even got who was called Roach, and it wasn't me. It's what is going on here? And so Henry was due at the end of January, and all the way up to mid-January, I had no money left because my PhD funding had run out. Had no money left. I was trying to pass my driving test for the 3rd time, and we were expecting. It was pressured, and God clearly provided this job for me as a company secretary. But like most of you, I had no idea what that was. And so I fell into this job, and then no sooner was I in the job, I had to sign a study agreement to do 8 exams, chartered exams in like finance and strategy and law and business. And these were like, sorry if you like those subjects, but those were like the least, like the last thing I wanted to be doing, basically. If you'd have said to me, what do you really not want to do after university? I would have said, I don't want to work, working for a faceless corporation and just like in financial services, I just don't want to do it. And that's what I ended up doing for 10 and a half years. And I remember wearing a tie and having to wear a tie like every day, and I wasn't used to it. And that was like a metaphor, like a tight tie around my neck. It just felt like, that's an expression, isn't it? A noose around my neck. It just felt like that. And it was challenging and it was difficult. But God was clearly in it. That was almost the hardest thing. I knew he'd provided this job. And I would say then, and I'd still say now, I felt like he pushed me down a route that I didn't want to go so that I could learn lots of things and change and grow in ways that I didn't want to, but probably had to. And so it was that I was like working every evening for about 4 years, studying exams I didn't want to study in a job that I didn't really want, whilst at the same time knowing that God was in it. And Jacob's life is like that, but amped up to the max for those 20 years. And Laban is putting him under pressure, and God is using that pressure to shape him and mold him and refine him. And we'll see that when he comes out of this, he'll be a different man. And there's deep structural work going on underneath. There's stuff going on. God isn't mentioned in the passage, but he's everywhere. And things are being knocked off him, things are being ripped out of him. Some bits of him will never be seen again, and new things are being added. But God hasn't abandoned him. The fact that there's no mention of God maybe makes you think, well, like, God, where are you? Where are you? I wonder if he was like that. Like, you made these promises to my dad. I even met with you in the night, and you promised things to me. Where are you? But God hadn't abandoned him, and God hadn't left him to rot, and he was profoundly at work in these years, whether or not Jacob realized it. Whether or not you know it, in some of your biggest challenges, God is there. Whether or not you feel it, he is there. That is called faith. That is called faith, trusting God in the dark, the assurance of things not seen. He is there. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you are working. And Jacob will leave Laban's house a changed man. I wonder where you're feeling the pressure at the moment. I wonder the difficult bits of your life at the moment. I wonder where you can't see God's hand at work at the moment. That might be a difficult work situation. That might be a difficult family relationship. That might be the downstream consequences of a bad decision that you made, or a decision you made badly that was the right decision. It might be too that you didn't do anything wrong in that situation. There's lots that Jacob did wrong, but what Laban did to him was not Jacob's fault, right? He was a victim of what Laban did to him. It might just be that you're on the receiving end of that. And in those moments, I think there is a choice. Will we trust him? Will we trust him? Are we only following him because we can see him? Or because it's good? Or because it's easy? Or because it's really tangible? Or because we had a tingly feeling? Is that all it is? Or will we trust him when we don't see him and when we don't feel anything? When we're not sure of the outcome? When there's tension, when there's difficulty, when we're in a situation when we really wish we weren't. So Jacob, we're almost there. Just a word on Leah. This was messy. This was a messy situation, and as I said, it's about to get messier. Jacob's got 2 wives, and he's got 2 servants, and they are going to form the nation of Israel. Those 12 ridiculous boys. God is going to do something wonderful through them. But what's really interesting is that the way God is going to do something wonderful, the way God's blessing is going to come, is through the supporting actress in this story, Leah. It isn't going to be through the beautiful one. It isn't going to be through the all-rounder. It isn't going to be through the one who ticks all the boxes. It's going to be through the one that no one wanted. It's going to be through the one whose dad just thought, fine, she's a pawn in the game. I'll use her. I can get rid of her in this process. It's going to be through her. It's going to be through the one whose husband, Jacob, never loved her. God is going to do something through her. God's promise is to bless the world through Abraham and through Isaac and through Jacob. We're going to come through Leah. Not the beautiful one, not the one who's got it all together. Jesus is going to come through Leah's line. And it isn't just going to be the mess of this family that is going to be upended. It's going to be the mess of the whole world that is going to be upended through Leah's line, through Jesus himself, coming sort of from our peripheral vision. Isn't that like God? Isn't that like his kingdom? That he's going to do something from the margins. He's going to turn everything upside down. So that we who by nature are like Jacob really, who want to run from God, or when it comes to decision making, we don't include him or we make poor choices, so that we could have an opportunity to be showered with the blessing and favor of God, the undeserved, unearned grace of God, that would then be able to work in us and transform us and change all of the mess in us. All of that is available to us. All of that was available to them, but through Leah. So I think there's something in there. Like we rate people on how they look, or we rate jobs on how they look, and we rate things on how they look, badly or well, right? We just write people off. And so I think there's a real encouragement there not to write people off. This church should be a church where everyone is welcome and everyone's equally valued. And actually, even, in fact, maybe that the ones who don't look so good or don't have it all together are actually elevated. And that's what Jesus does through Leah. So let's be like that in our walks with him. Let's be like that as a church. Let's be Grace Church, right? Undeserved, unearned favor, blessing to all can come. So why don't we stand and I will pray for us. Stand. There's lots in here, and I've gone on for long enough, but this may well have hit home for you. Like there may be decisions in your life. There may be tricky things in your life. You may be living downstream of a bad decision. You may have real questions about relationships and jobs and challenge. And I'm sure that the Lord wants to meet with you in it. So shall we pray now? And why don't you, if there is something that just came to your head, like when I said that, or in this sermon, let's bring that to the Lord now. Should we do that? And just name that in your head. So why don't you close your eyes and let's bring ourselves to the Lord. And then I'll pray and we'll carry on. Lord Jesus, we thank you. We thank you that even when we think you're not at work, you are. We thank you that you are right there. Help us to trust you. Help us to trust you. Would we grow in trust of you? Would we realize even now that often life is just about trusting you in the dark? And I pray, Lord, for those struggling with decisions, those who have made maybe bad decisions or made decisions badly, and Lord, I pray that you would meet with them now. We thank you that we don't stand here because we're fantastic or because we've earned anything or because we deserve anything, but we stand here by your grace. You've chosen to bless us. You've chosen to love us just because you've chosen to do that. And so I pray, would you meet with each of us now? Bring reassurance, bring comfort. Show us where you're at work. We do want that. We want to trust you in the dark, but please show us where you're at work. Encourage us, we pray. Take us on in you, we ask. We dare to say that as difficult as those things are, we want you more. and we want to grow in our love for you more. So if it's a case of knocking things off us and changing us, then we would rather that we would become more like you than have an easy life. So would you do that? Would you keep us from evil and from really bad decisions, we pray. Take us on in you, we ask. Amen.